Hello and welcome to Planet 40k. Today's video was voted by our patrons on our Patreon service, linked in the description, and the winner of that poll was the Space Marine Eliminator Squad. So we're going to have a little discussion about the unit and how it stacks up against the rest of the codex. Before we do guys, there's still a huge percentage of you that have yet to subscribe, 60% of you in fact. So if you aren't yet subscribed to the channel, do us a huge favour and click that subscribe button below. We're currently bringing out 4 review videos a week and need the support. Okay, on to the Eliminators, a heavy support choice which is quite a crowded area of the book. In a good way though I think, as it opens up a lot of options to a Space Marine player. They come in at 30 points a man or 5 power level for a unit of 3. You can only get them in a 3-man unit, so you'll be paying the full 90 points. Before we look at the stats, we need to firstly have a glance at the keywords of note to see what we'll be interacting with within the game itself. So of course they've got the chapter keyword, they are a core unit, they're a Primaris as well as a Phobos unit, and they are an infantry unit. So lots of synergy within the book, and the buffs are going to come from numerous places. Onto their stat line: movement 6 inch, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 2+, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 2, attacks 2, leadership 7 and a 3+ save. Now the sergeant is going to have an extra attack and an extra bit of leadership, taking the squad to a leadership 8. Now these are typical Primaris Marine stats, except they've got a ballistic skill 2, so quite reliable when it comes to rolling to hit. Next into the abilities, Angels of Death. I'm sure you all know what this is by now, so I always try and keep it as brief as possible on this rule. There are still new players watching, so we'll only touch upon it briefly. And Thou Shalt Know No Fear will not affect them because they're only a 3-man unit. Bolt to Discipline also doesn't have any effect, as there's no bolt or rapid fire weapons here. Shock Assaults get an extra attack if they charged, were charged or heroically intervene. Not really ideal being a shooter unit. Then finally Combat Doctrines, which we'll discuss more when we go into the weapon section of the video. They've then got Concealed Positions, which allows them to deploy anywhere on the battlefield as long as they're more than 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone and enemy units. Then finally they've got Covering Fire, which works if your sergeant is still alive and is carrying an Instigator bolt carbine. Now after the unit is shot, the unit can do a normal move as if it was the movement phase. So it's nice to get your guys back into cover or onto an objective. So that's the abilities, not many there. As for the stock weapons, all models in the unit have bolt pistols with frag and crack grenades as standard. The grenades you're not going to be using, but the bolt pistol may see use in combat perhaps. They all come with a bolt sniper rifle and a camo cloak. So let's check out that sniper rifle first. So it comes in 3 modes that you must select before selecting your target. All 3 can ignore the Lookout Sir rule, which is really solid for picking out those key characters. Also, all 3 of the options come in the same range at 36-inch range, so pretty good. The first option is the Hyper Frag round, which is a heavy D3 weapon. It's strength 5, no AP and 1 damage, and it has the blast keyword. So this is the weaker of the 3, although it does have the blast keyword. So if you are aiming at infantry units containing 11 or more models, then you're automatically getting 3 shots each. Now against those kind of units you don't really need any AP, and 1 damage is enough, so I'm thinking more Orc Boys, Gaunts, that sort of unit. The second is the Executioner round, which is heavy 1, strength 5, minus 1 AP and 1 damage. Each time you attack with this weapon it's a +1 to hit, and the unit you're firing at doesn't receive benefits of cover. So these guys already hit at ballistic skill 2, so it's only really useful if you've already moved and fired, as moving with heavy weapons will incur a -1 to hit penalty, so it cancels that out. The -1 AP and no cover save is still only hurting weaker targets. The only issue now is it's 1 shot, not D3, but it does allow you to move. The third is the Mortis round. It's a heavy 1, strength 5, minus 2 AP and the damage is now 2. Any wound rolls of a 6 cause a mortal wound on top of the damage. Now if you were to be sniping out characters, this is the mode you select. It's only got 3 shots for the unit, but you're very likely to hit all 3 with ballistic skill 2. Strength 5 is enough to wound on 3s, maybe 4s if they're slightly tougher. The minus 2 AP will likely put HQs on their Rinbon saves, which you'd expect anyway. Then 2 damage a pop is pretty nice, with any 6s adding more mortal wounds. Now you're not likely to kill a warlord within a round of shooting, but if you did find a character target without an Inbon save you might get lucky. Firing 3 shots at a toughness 4 character that has a 4+ save, you'll average around 0.83 wounds to go unsaved, which is an average damage outcome of 1.7. Then if you do this without the Inbon save and just a 3-up regular save, then that damage rises to a 2.2. Now of course in the actual game the dice don't work in averages and it's either hit or miss. That's dice for you, they're just unpredictable. Now all 3 are heavy, so in the Devastator Doctrine, which is turn 1, they're going to get an additional -1 AP to the weapon. They've also got Camo Cloaks, which is if you're in cover you're going to get a +1 to your armor save, putting them on a 2+ armor save. then of course you're going to stack it with the terrain save as well. Now as for other options that the unit has, the sergeant can swap out his sniper for either an instigator bolt carbine, which was the weapon required for covering fire, which was the ability where they can move after shooting. Also, all models in the unit can opt to swap their sniper rifles out for a las fusel. So let's check out these options and see if they're worth it. So the instigator bolt carbine is 24-inch range, assault 1, strength 4, -1 AP with 2 damage, and it also ignores the lookout sir rule. So like I said, you need this to be able to shoot and then move, which I personally don't see a need for. You're likely going to be camping on an objective or in terrain anyway, maybe even be in a high-rise ruin. So I'd not really go for moving them too much, and I'd ignore the weapon. It drops you down to a strength 4 as well and only -1 AP, whereas I'd just rather fire the mortis rounds with the sniper. Although in the tactical doctrine this weapon will be a -2 AP. As for the las fusel, it's 36-inch range, strength 8, -3 AP, and the damage is a flat 3. Now this doesn't ignore lookout sir like the other ones do. That would be a bit too crazy if it did. But it is a good anti-vehicle weapon, and it also works well against toughness 4 infantry as you're wounding them on 2s. Terminators in particular won't like these as it's a flat 3 damage which removes the terminator for each wound that leaks through. Bear in mind the upgrade costs 10 points a man, so a full set of these is 30 points on top of your 90 points, giving you a total cost of 120 points for the unit. Now I think they are decent value as you can hide your strength 8 weapons within the unit and you're going to be getting a good save and throw due to your camo cloaks. Now moving away from the weapons and instead looking at some of the stratagems available to the eliminators. Transhuman physiology for 1 CP, which means your unit can only be wounded on a 4+. So effectively brings down the strength of any weapons targeting your unit to a strength 4. Uncompromising firepower for 2 CP allows the unit to fire and still do their secondary actions. Adaptive strategy for 2 CP turns on all the doctrines for the unit for a turn to get an extra bit of AP. Guerrilla tactics for 1 CP lets a unit that is more than 6 inches away from enemy units be able to go back into strategic reserves. Now probably unlikely to be used, but it can have its tactical uses late game. So before we conclude the unit, we first need to look at some unit synergy. Now being a core unit is extremely helpful as it interacts with a lot of buffs in the codex. You can use captains to reroll 1s, and then being ballistic skill 2 already rerolling 1s is virtually hitting everything. Lieutenants do the same thing for the wounds roll, so you're likely going to be 3s rerolling 1s to wound. Librarians have their options of using the Librarius discipline or the Obscuration discipline due to the eliminators having the Phobos keyword. So a few powers in particular that are useful are Shrouding, so they can't be targeted unless they're the nearest enemy unit. Soul Sight to give them a +1 to their range attacks, and the enemy doesn't receive benefits of cover. Now, your executioner rounds have both of those abilities already. Why not use this with the Hyperfang rounds or the Mortis rounds against characters? The +1 to hit in particular allows you to move and still fire on 2s. Chaplains have their litanies. Now a few in particular to raid your eliminators here are Cataclysm of Fire, give a +1 to their wound roll, which will likely have your guys hitting and wounding on 2s. And Resuscitation of Focus to add 1 to the hit rolls. Again, this allows you to move and fire the Mortis rounds without a -1 to hit penalty. And of course Apothecaries to not only give you a 6+ Feel No Pain roll, but they can also heal D3 wounds per turn. Now the final part of the review is the best chapters to use the eliminators with. Dark Angels are due to have a supplement any day now at the time of recording this video, so I'm not going to touch on them at the moment. Ultramarines allow the unit to shoot at a -1 to hit when they fall back out of combat. This might get them out of some bother because they're not a melee unit. Their super doctrine is Designs of Gilliman, which allows them to shoot as if they've remained stationary, which is going to really help those heavy weapons. Salamanders have Forged in Battle, which allows for a single reroll to wound roll and puts a -1 AP weapon fired at your unit to a no AP weapon, which keeps them on a 2+ save with that camo cloak. Raven Guard is always interesting with these types of tactical units, so they've got Shadow Master as their chapter tactics, which is if the unit is targeted from more than 18 inches away, then your unit will gain light cover. So this part may not actually apply, as you'd like to think you're already in cover due to your camo cloaks. But they've also got a second part of the tactic, which is if they were targeted by more than 12 inches away while being in cover, then they're also treated as having dense cover, which is a -1 to hit modifier against your unit. Their super doctrine is Surgical Strikes. Now while the tactical doctrine is active, all the models in the faction will add 1 to hit and 1 to wound rolls when targeting a character. So if your snipers in particular using the Mortis rounds, you're going to be ignoring that lookout sir rule and gunning down characters anyway, but with a +1 to hit so you can move first getting into range. Then if that character is toughness 4, then you're also wounded on 2s as well with a -2 AP and 2 damage each. Now they're likely to have a 4+ in-1 save, but if you can get a couple going through per turn, then the character won't last long. Death Watch is also interesting as they've got rerolls of 1 to wound against a selected battlefield roll, although you're probably not realistically going to select HQs as the battlefield role, but if you purely design your strategy based on how your eliminators did, then technically yes, you could select HQs and reroll 1s to wound against HQs for the entire game. They've also got mission tactics, which allows you to select which doctrine you're in each turn. Now there are still limited uses to the doctrines, but selecting which one you're going to be using in a select turn is pretty good. So conclusion time, the unit is quite versatile for what looks like a simple sniper unit. They can change their rounds up on each turn depending on your target, which is quite a rare thing to be able to do, unless you're Death Watch of course with special issue ammunition. Now even though they've got no invuln save, I almost feel like you don't need one, as the camo cloak puts you on a 2+ save when in cover, which you always should be, and if it's dense cover then you're going to get a -1 to hit on top. The concealed positions is only really there to get you into the best possible cover for the battlefield, so make use of that, get as high as possible for the best line of sight, and then there's also no real threat of being charged either. If this fails, then if you armed your sergeant with the Instigator bolt carbine, then you can be shooting and ducking into obscuring terrain. In fact, you can opt to move before shooting, so you can move, shoot, then move again, but of course this is going to be a -1 to hit, which isn't the end of the world when you start on Ballistic Skill 2. Man for man, they aren't cheap, but as there's only 3 of them, the unit itself is only 90 points, so it's fairly cheap, especially if you're targeting characters all game. So they should be making their points back as soon as they kill a single HQ model. The Lasfusel upgrade is a nice weapon, but it leads me to a few issues within the unit. Firstly, the heavy support area is packed. There's much better strength 8 weapons within the book that are more versatile or just do a better job at it, such as Hellblasters, Eradicators, Devastators, not to mention all the tanks at your disposal. Although they can't target characters, but nor can the Lasfusel. I think that this unit does work well, but only for select chapters such as Ultramarines and Raven Guard, which in my eyes are the more tactical of chapters. Now I'm sure you can make them work for say Iron Hands or Black Templars, but those chapters have much better options within their detachment abilities. So yeah, in all, the Eliminator Squad is going to get a Planet 40k rating of 3.5 out of 5. I like the versatility, and also ignoring the Lookout Sir rule could be a real thorn in any player's side, especially factions that rely heavily on the character buffs or psychic powers for example. Guys, let me know your thoughts below. Also, I've started ending the videos on some sort of questions to the viewers. This one doesn't quite relate to the video, but I just wanted you to all comment below on which chapter you play from the Space Marine Codex, so I can get a rough idea on who I'm targeting with these videos. Anyway guys, as always, drop a like on your way out. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.